I trusted her completely. Then one night I opened her diary, and the truth shattered everything. Hey there. So, this is one of those stories you don't ever expect to be telling, until suddenly it's your life. I remember the day it all began clearly, not because anything dramatic happened at first but because of how normal it seemed. Hey Dave, you got a second? Her voice cut through the fog I was in, pulling me away from a blueprint that was starting to feel more like a jigsaw puzzle designed by someone who'd never seen a real building site. I looked up to see Lynn walking toward me. Sure thing, Lynn. What's going on? Lynn was the newest addition to our engineering team, young, brilliant, and probably the sharpest mind in the office. She graduated magna cum laude from MIT, and we were lucky to snag her before one of the bigger firms did. Out of everyone in what we jokingly called the pool, basically a rotating group of engineers working on different projects, Lynn and I ended up teaming up the most often. She was blonde, blue-eyed, and honestly stunning. At least that's how I saw her. There was something about her, this confidence mixed with curiosity, that made her hard not to notice. She was, in a lot of ways, the kind of person I would have dreamed of being with if I were a younger man and in some alternate reality. I'd be lying if I said my mind never wandered. There were moments when I caught myself drifting into innocent little daydreams about her. But those thoughts always stayed locked away where they belonged, for two very big reasons. First, and without question the most important, was my wife, Dawn. If I ever crossed a line like that, it would crush her, and honestly it would tear me apart too. I've never been the kind of man to throw away a lifetime over a moment of weakness. And second, well, Lynn is in her mid-20s. I'm pushing 50. I couldn't picture a world where someone like her would ever see someone like me that way. So yeah, it stayed where it belonged, in my head, and I went home each night grateful to have a woman like Dawn waiting for me. Dawn and I have been together for 27 years. That kind of time gives you perspective. Sure, we've had our share of rough patches. What couple doesn't? But through it all, we've managed to hold on to something real. I love her deeply. And I know she loves me back. If there's one challenge we've never quite been able to fully fix, it's how differently we approach, well, intimacy. Dawn has always preferred a quieter, more low-key connection in that part of our relationship, while I've naturally had a bit more energy in that area. It's not a big deal now, but early in our marriage it definitely created some friction. We even went to a counselor back then, hoping to find common ground. And it helped. I realized something during those sessions, something that's stuck with me ever since. Love is about more than getting every need met perfectly. It's about showing up, choosing your person, day after day, even when it's not easy. Over time I found ways to adapt. We both did. And honestly, we're stronger for it. That counseling saved us in a way. It laid the groundwork for a marriage that's lasted through raising 3 incredible kids, changing careers, and growing older together. Our daughter Sarah is married now, with 2 little ones of her own. Those grandkids light up our lives. And our 2 boys are off chasing their own dreams in college. You know, life handed me plenty of opportunities to mess up over the years. There were times when other women, including a couple of Dawn's friends, made advances I didn't see coming. And in those moments I'd ask myself, what kind of friend does that? But every time I pulled back, not just because of guilt or fear, but because I didn't want anything to come between Dawn and me. Despite everything, our differences, life's curveballs, I've only grown closer to her with time. She's not just my wife. She's my best friend. And I never imagined anything could threaten that. I've genuinely felt happy in our marriage. Like, really content, the kind of deep comfort that comes from years of choosing each other. Laura, my wife, she's told me time and time again how much she loves me, and it's not just words. She shows it in the little things, the kind of kindness that becomes part of your daily rhythm. The warm meals, the way she folds my clothes just the way I like it, how she always checks in to see if I'm okay. So yeah, if someone asked, I'd tell them without hesitation, we're happily married. Which is exactly why someone like Lynn was always going to be just out of bounds, off the table. One of those fleeting, harmless thoughts that never leaves your head. And to be honest, Laura and I even joked about it now and then. She'd nudge me with that playful grin and say, "Look all you want, Dave, but hands to yourself, mister." And if she ever caught me glancing at someone, she might give me a little elbow or smirk like she was in on some private joke. Of course, when she's with me, I'm on my best behavior, subtle, discreet. But when I'm alone, well, sometimes that filter slips a little. Doesn't mean anything. Just being human, I guess. That afternoon, Lynn pulled my attention back with a soft voice. "Hey Dave, do you think you could help me out with something later?" "Sure, what's going on?" I asked, glancing up. "I've got this furniture I'm trying to move around. It's way too heavy for me on my own, and I could really use an extra set of hands." "I'd be glad to help," I told her. What time were you thinking? Right after work if that's okay, she said. Since Laura's in Boston this week, I figured you're probably flying solo anyway. I'll even cook you dinner. Now, the request itself wasn't strange. But there was something quiet in her voice. Maybe a slight change in the way she said it, an undertone I couldn't quite pin down. Caught my ear. Made me wonder just a little. The rest of the day breezed by smoother than most. That was rare in my line of work. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, I felt more relaxed than I had in a while, maybe even a bit lighter. I run the shop at our firm, and when I say my shop, I mean it. The partners made it clear early on, it's mine to manage. And I take that responsibility seriously. I've got a crew of about 30 under me. Most of them are younger. I'm the oldest guy in the group by a solid 10 years. That puts me in this weird middle space, still very much hands-on, but also expected to lead with experience. Anyway, when I finally stepped out that evening, Lynn was already waiting by the door. Caught me off guard. Oh, hey, you all right? I asked, surprised. Yeah, totally fine, she said with a smile. I was just waiting for you to come out so I could grab your work clothes and toss them in the wash. I chuckled, thinking she was joking. Nah, don't worry about that. I'll take them home and throw them in the machine there. But she shook her head, firm. Give them to me, Dave. I got it covered. No arguments. There was something in her tone, steady, confident. Not exactly forceful, but insistent. So I handed over the bundle, still feeling like I'd stepped into some sort of odd daydream. Except this was real. And something in my gut told me, this moment meant more than it seemed. She paused, glanced toward me and said, if you ever need help with anything, just say the word. I could ask Billy, Joe, even Red. They were really supportive when you were going through all that mess a few months back. I think they'd be more than happy to lean in and give you a hand. They're good guys, I said. But I'm not so sure what their wives would say about them dropping everything to help out someone else's family. Lynn smiled a little. They mean well. Their hearts are in the right place. I nodded, but my mind drifted. Yeah, but that's not it. He's out of the picture now. Has been for a while. I haven't spoken to him in months, Lynn said quietly, shaking her head. No. I didn't want to believe it either. But I asked Dawn how she could possibly do something like this to you. My chest tightened. And what did she say? Lynn hesitated, eyes darting to the floor. She just shrugged. Told me it kind of just happened with this guy, Steve. Said she felt guilty at first, but that didn't stop her from going back. Over and over. She let out a bitter breath. She told me being with him was different. Exciting. That he brought out a side of her she'd never shared with you. And she liked it, that sense of danger. The thrill of sneaking around, of keeping it all hidden. It hit like a sucker punch. I couldn't even speak. She also mentioned a notebook, Lynn added quietly, where she keeps track of things. It's like some kind of personal playbook, a way to cover her tracks. She keeps it hidden somewhere locked up. I stood frozen in place, hearing every word but struggling to process it. All of this weight, this pain, crashing down like a wave. It's not your fault, Lynn, I finally said, my voice low. This isn't about you. This is on Dawn. I need to go. I can't, dinner can wait. But before I could turn, she reached out and grabbed my arm. No, Dave, don't go. Please. I didn't ask you over just for the furniture. Her eyes were pleading now. I knew what I had to tell you was going to hurt, and I didn't want you to hear it alone. I've been where you are, I know what this kind of heartbreak feels like. And the worst thing you can do is sit by yourself and let it eat you alive. I looked at her, really looked at her. There was no judgment, no pity. Just someone who understood. Someone who cared. Later that evening, after I'd managed to get myself together enough to head home, Peg, our neighbor, saw me as I came up the front steps. She gave me a concerned look and gently said, "If you need anything, Dave, anything at all, just say the word." "Thanks, Peg," I said softly as she turned to go, the porch light catching the back of her coat as she stepped off the stoop. I watched her walk away, and for a second I thought about all those years I'd known her. There were moments, small ones, when I'd found myself wondering what her life was like behind closed doors. Peg was kind, warm, the kind of person who made you feel seen. Her husband always struck me as a decent guy. He was lucky to have her. But even now, with my world tipping sideways, I reminded myself this wasn't about her. Or any other woman for that matter. This was about Dawn. About the choices she made. No one else. I needed to stay grounded in that. Later, I sat down at the table with the notebook Lynn had warned me about. I'd found it tucked away in the back of Dawn's nightstand drawer, tied shut with a thin leather strap. My hands shook as I picked it up. The hesitation lasted only a second. I grabbed a small pair of scissors, also from her nightstand, and snipped through the strap. You really cut it open? Lynn whispered from across the room, her voice filled with disbelief. I didn't look up. Yeah, I said quietly. She's not hiding from me anymore. And then I began to read. I shrugged, unsure what else to say. By the time she finds out, I said quietly, things you'll already be pretty messy around here anyway. Lynn nodded slowly. Yeah, good point. I guess it doesn't really make much difference at this stage, does it? Still, I could tell we both felt uneasy about what we were doing. I feel a little strange going through her things, she admitted, her voice softening. You're not the only one, I replied. This isn't something I'd normally do, Lynn. Not even close. But these aren't exactly normal times. With that, we turned our attention to the diary, the one I just cut open. The leather strap now lay limp beside it, a quiet reminder of the line we'd just crossed. Page by page we started reading the more recent entries. I took my time, careful not to rush. Dawn had written about us. Our life together, our past struggles, even our attempts to fix things in counseling. She spoke about the good times and the quiet distance that crept in between us over the years. Reading her words brought some clarity, I guess, but not the kind I was hoping for. If anything, they left me more lost than before. There was no denying it, Dawn loved me. That much was obvious. But there was also something darker under the surface. She'd written in plain words that she couldn't stop herself when it came to Steve. That what started as something small had grown into something she didn't know how to walk away from. It wasn't just physical, it was the rush, the secrecy, the danger. One thing that gave me a sliver of hope, though, she mentioned this trip she was on now, saying it was supposed to be the last time. That she'd come back ready to close that chapter. But by then the damage was already done. As I sat there in silence, Lynn offered a gentle distraction. I might be a little underdressed for this whole emotional crisis, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. She smiled, then blushed, which caught me off guard. No, you're fine, she said, tucking her hair behind her ear. It's just, I hadn't realized you, kept yourself in such good shape. That one landed harder than I expected. I wasn't used to being complimented like that, especially not by someone like Lynn. She was smart, beautiful, and a good 15-20 years younger than me. For a second I felt that awkward flush creep up my neck. Thanks, I said, managing a half laugh. I try to stay healthy. Doesn't come as easy as it used to. For a moment I wasn't sure where we stood. Was she just being kind, or was there something else building beneath the surface? I wasn't ready to figure that out. I had enough complications on my plate already. Lynn had poured everything into her career, and I knew whatever came next for her wouldn't be simple. She was sharp and driven, and walking away from that path wouldn't be easy, even if she wanted to. I couldn't afford to get swept up in another emotional storm. Not now. With Dawn set to return home soon, I braced myself. I knew the atmosphere in the house would be tense, uncertain. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be the same old rhythm we'd fallen into for years. I wasn't the same man anymore, and she'd have to face that. She was either going to accept this new version of me, the one with firmer boundaries, clearer expectations, or she was going to resent it. Either way, I didn't see a middle ground anymore. And knowing Dawn, with her background in law and the connections she had, I was aware of the risks if things turned bitter. That night I felt the need to anchor myself, to reach for something steady. Without thinking much about it, I picked up the phone and called Lynn. I kept her on the line as I dialed Dawn, needing someone else to be present, even if only through a speaker. I spoke loudly, making sure Lynn could hear the whole thing. So, you think you'll be back earlier than planned? Yes, Dawn replied, her voice clipped. That's what I said earlier. Dave, what's going on? You're acting strange. I paused, then let out a small sigh. It's been a long day. I guess I'm just a little off. Sorry if I sound, I don't know, distant. She didn't say anything right away. The silence on the line felt heavier than usual. If you want to talk about something. Not now, I cut in gently. Let's just talk when you get home. I ended the call before she could dig deeper. Lynn stayed quiet on the other end, but I knew she was still there, listening. And for some reason that made it easier to breathe. I'll give you a call tomorrow, I told her, trying to sound a little more optimistic than I felt. Hopefully I'll have my head on straight by then. I could feel something shifting between us, something subtle but undeniable. The kind of moment where the air thickens and your gut tells you this could lead somewhere you might not be ready to go. Lynn gave me a hopeful smile. You know, she said, I could give you a few tips on your lifting routine, but maybe now's not the best time. Yeah, I said quickly, forcing a chuckle. Probably better to wait until things settled down. She nodded, but I didn't miss the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Maybe it was mixed with something else too, anticipation maybe? I wasn't sure. All I knew was that she was far too young for me, and I kept telling myself that like it was some kind of mantra. But that feeling, that slow, warm current building inside me, it was getting harder to ignore. So, what really brought you by today? I asked, trying to shift the energy. She gave a vague smile, then turned to leave. As she walked down the sidewalk just before she disappeared from view, I noticed something that stopped me cold: tears. She was crying. And the sight of that, her wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, twisted something deep inside me. I wanted to run after her. Say something. Do something. But I didn't. I just stood there, stuck in that familiar paralysis between impulse and responsibility. It had been a heavy weekend. Eye-opening in ways I hadn't prepared for. And I knew Monday wouldn't bring relief, it would bring consequences. I'd already made the first hard call: legal separation. I wasn't ready to file for divorce, not yet. But I couldn't keep pretending like this would all just blow over. The separation would give both Dawn and me the space to figure out whether there was anything left to rebuild. Or if what we had was already gone. That morning, I walked into the office earlier than usual. Lynn was already there, which surprised me. As soon as I stepped in, she lit up, jumped up from her chair, and gave me a quick hug. And then, out of nowhere, she kissed me. It was soft, brief, and over in seconds. She sat back down like nothing had happened. What was that for? I asked, stunned. She looked up at me with those clear blue eyes. I just wanted you to know, she said softly, that I still feel the same way. About you. About us. I glanced around, my heart thudding in my chest. Thankfully, no one had seen the kiss. But it was close. Bill walked in just seconds after Lynn settled back in her chair. Hey. Thought you were on vacation, old man? He joked, clapping me on the shoulder. What brings you by? Just checking on things, I said, forcing a smile. Can't stay away too long or you guys might replace me. He laughed. With Lynn around? You're lucky we let you come back at all. He didn't know what I was carrying. None of them did. Later that day, Lynn brought up something Dawn had shared with her, back when Dawn was still in Boston. It's weird, she said. She told me about someone she was dealing with out there. But now it's like she doesn't even want to acknowledge it happened. She acts like she wants it erased. She mentioned you might have figured something out while she was still away, Lynn added. What did you say to her when she told you that? I asked. I told her that maybe she deserved whatever truth was coming. Her honesty made me wince, but it also made me feel a little less alone. I know you're trying to figure this out, Dave, she said gently. And I know you're still married. But we'll see where things go. I nodded, though I felt like I was sinking beneath the weight of it all. Every decision, every moment, I was scared. Not just of losing my marriage, but of what might happen next. Of what I might already have done. If anything with Lynn went further, there would be consequences. And it hit me, hard, that I hadn't thought about protection. Not once. What if I became a father again? What would my kids think? Would they still see me the same way? Would they understand? And then came the bigger question. Who was Dawn really? Because after everything I'd read, everything I'd heard, I wasn't sure anymore. I'd been married to her for nearly 3 decades. But suddenly she felt like a stranger. I don't want to hurt you, I said softly, looking at Lynn across the room. And I definitely don't want you waiting around, hoping this ends in divorce. She didn't speak at first, just kept looking at me with those wide, tear-filled eyes. You're young, Lynn, I went on, struggling to find the right words. You've got your whole life ahead of you. You should be with someone closer to your age. Someone who can give you the kind of future you deserve. She started to shake her head, but I held up a hand. As much as I care about you, and I do more than I probably should, I know this is foolish. You and I both need to take a step back. We need time, space, to figure all of this out. But Lynn didn't back down. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, resting her head against my chest. I'd wait forever for you, Dave, she whispered. You're it for me. I know that now. I don't need time to figure it out. Don't say that, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. People change. You might change. One day you might wake up and realize this wasn't love, it was just the idea of love. Or worse, what if you end up resenting me? No, she said, pulling back to look me in the eye. Don't ever say that. I love you, Dave. I'm not pretending. I'm not confused. I love you more than anything in the world, but not in some naive, fleeting way. I know it's real. You're the only man I've ever loved like this. Her words knocked the air out of me. Part of me wanted to believe her, needed to believe her. But the weight of it all, the chaos of my life unraveling, made me hesitate. And then, like a switch flipping, my mind turned back to Dawn. I started replaying all the lies, all the things she told me over the past year. Dawn, I muttered, almost to myself. You said you had to go to Boston. You said a client needed your help. You said it would only be a week. I clenched my fist. And in that 1 week, you threw everything away, all the years, all the memories. For what? One mistake. I could still hear her voice from that phone call. It just happened, she had said. I had too much going on. I wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you, hurting us. I ended it with him last night, she had whispered. I swear to you, Dave, you're the one I want. Nobody else. But even with all those words, the damage was done. Yeah, I told her. You love me. But not enough. Not enough to be the kind of wife I needed. Not enough to stay faithful when it counted. Not enough to fight back when temptation came knocking. I looked at Lynn again and my heart ached in a whole new way. What she took from me, I said quietly, she didn't just take from me. She took it from us, our family, our future. She gave him parts of herself that I thought were mine. And now I'm left trying to piece together what's left. Lynn stepped closer, her voice trembling now. You know I'm trying to be honest with you, right? I'm not playing games. But I won't lie, if I'm near you, I won't always be able to keep my distance. I love you, Dave. That's the truth. I nodded slowly, eyes heavy. That's exactly why we have to be careful. I love you too, Lynn. But if Dawn and I end up trying to put this back together, it'll tear you apart. And I won't, be the reason you get hurt like that. So what then? She asked, barely holding herself together. We just avoid each other? Until what? Until you've made up your mind. Until you've fixed your marriage or finally let it go? I don't know, I whispered. I wish I did. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the detective's report. Steve. Turns out he wasn't new to this. He'd been looked into before. 2 other women. Same pattern. He always had someone on standby, someone to fill in the gaps. And my stomach dropped at the thought, had Dawn really been just another name on his list? The fear crept in next, the kind you don't expect until betrayal is staring you down. What if she brought something back with her, something no loyal partner would ever think twice about? I hated that my mind went there, but I couldn't stop it. What had she given him that she never gave me? That question wouldn't leave me alone. The more I thought about it, the more questions started circling in my mind, sharp, unrelenting ones that didn't have clean answers. Had she felt more alive with him? More desirable? Had she given Steve something she never gave to me even when we were at our best? Then she walked through the door and I saw her. Hair done. A subtle swipe of makeup. Dressed nicely, polished, but not in a way I was used to seeing from her. It almost felt like she was trying to soften her appearance, maybe even disappear into it. I knew I was being irrational, but it stung. She dressed up for him. She could make the effort to be attractive for someone else. But not for me. Not for years. I tried to shake it off. Coffee? I asked, trying to steady my voice. She nodded. Yeah, please. Dawn took her usual seat at the kitchen table, like nothing had changed. Like we weren't sitting on opposite sides of the biggest chasm our marriage had ever faced. I poured her a cup and slid it toward her, then sat down across from her. The silence between us was heavy. I was the first to break it. First of all, I said quietly, I want to hear you say it. I want you to admit that your job played a part in how we got here. She blinked. Wait, are you saying you expect me to quit? That's not what I said, I replied, trying to stay calm. But yeah, it hit me just now. You've worked hard, I get that. You earned your partnership. But Dawn, your job gave you the freedom, the means, the excuse, to be with him. Her lips parted, shocked. That's not fair, Dave. No, what's unfair is that I trusted you, completely. And you used that trust to walk right into something I had no idea was happening. You had every opportunity to tell me and you didn't. Her eyes welled up. You think I didn't struggle with it? I sat back and let out a slow breath. You didn't struggle enough to stop. The room went quiet again. Then I decided to lay it all out. I hired detectives while you were in Boston, I said plainly. I had them follow you. My lawyers have their report. You'll be getting a copy. She blinked hard, stunned. You hired people to spy on me? You left me no choice, I replied. And I won't apologize for wanting to know the truth. You broke something in us. The least I could do was protect what was left. Later that evening, Lynn and I ended up going to dinner. It wasn't planned, it just happened. She'd shown up, dressed in this dark green dress that fit her perfectly. Elegant, tasteful, but it still caught me off guard. I hadn't expected to see her like that. We were seated at our usual table, the one we'd reserved weeks ago for a work dinner. The waiter placed her across from me, candles flickering between us, and for a second I forgot how heavy my life had become. "You look beautiful," I said, barely above a whisper. She smiled, but there was something more behind it. "Dave," she said gently, "I know you're trying to do the right thing. I respect that. But I also know you want me. And I want you. Can't we just try? Just once, no strings." Her words hit hard. There was no mistaking the meaning behind them. I wanted her. That was no secret. But I also knew how far gone I was, how vulnerable. My whole world was already teetering on the edge, and this would push it over. I hesitated, then put an arm gently around her shoulder. She leaned into me, and for a moment I let myself believe in the warmth of it. But deep down I knew it couldn't go further. Not like this. "Lynn," I said quietly, "I can't. I love you too much to hurt you." She pulled back slightly, her expression unreadable. "If Dawn and I try to work this out, you'll get hurt. And I won't be able to live with myself if I do that to you." She bit her lip and looked down. "So what now? We just stay away from each other?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But whatever we do, it can't be dishonest." The conversation spiraled from there. She started questioning things, about me, about herself, about right and wrong. "I talked to Dave," she said suddenly. "The other one. The one you think I've been manipulating. He said what I was doing to him wasn't fair. That I was messing with his mind." I was surprised. "You told him?" "I had to," she said. "Because even though I care about you, I'm realizing that I've been running in circles trying to hold everything together. And I'm not sure I even can anymore. I don't want you to feel like you scared me off earlier," she added, softer now. "With your touch. You didn't." I looked at her and saw something tender, something real, but also something fragile. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "But I don't want to lose myself either." Neither of us had the answers. But we both knew, whatever came next would change everything. I knew I had to find a way to calm Lynn down. There was this tension in her, like she didn't know whether to move toward me or pull away. And truthfully, I had a plan forming in the back of my mind. I needed to guide this moment, play it a little, even if that meant not giving in completely. "Lynn," I said gently, "your care, it's what's holding me together right now. I'm lucky. I really am. To have someone like you in my life, kind, beautiful, and just present." She set her drink down and stepped a little closer. Her eyes locked with mine, soft but full of intention. "I'm going to show you just how much I care about you, Dave," she said quietly. "I want to." But I lifted a hand between us and said, "Wait. I need to say something first." The truth was, I didn't want her doing something she might regret, especially not to spite Dawn. Not right now. Not like this. I needed her to pause. To think. "Lynn," I said, "I've been drawn to you for a while now. More than I should admit. You're on my mind even when you're not around. And now that I know how deeply you care about me, it feels overwhelming. In the best way." She smiled then, just a little. "I care about you too. Probably more than I should." But beneath that sweetness I saw something else flicker, something more unsure. She was asking without words, "What does this mean now?" I didn't have a clear answer. And in the quiet that followed, my thoughts drifted. Back to Dawn. To all the moments I'd overlooked. The times I let things go when I should have spoken up. I remembered one night in particular, a night I'd forgotten until Lynn brought it up. The late dinner. "You know," she said softly, "there was one night when Dawn had dinner with Steve. You'd made something at home. You were waiting for her. But she called and said she'd be late." My heart sank. I remembered making dinner that night. I remembered thinking she was just swamped with work. "She told me later she felt guilty," Lynn added. "She wondered if maybe you'd figured it out. But when you didn't say anything, when you didn't push, she thought maybe it was okay to keep going." I sat in silence. My hands clenched in my lap. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I know," Lynn said gently. "You had no idea. That's what made it worse." And just like that, the truth landed hard again. Dawn had betrayed me not just with her actions but with her silence. With the way she let me keep believing in something that wasn't real anymore. She would be arriving soon. Lynn was helping me prepare for that, whatever that even meant. There was tension in the room, but for a moment, it softened. "So," Lynn asked cautiously, "now that you've admitted you love me, and you know I love you, does this mean?" But before she could finish the thought, her voice cracked. She lowered her head, her shoulders shaking. The tears came fast. She sobbed into her hands, completely unraveling. And it broke something in me to see her that way. I wanted to comfort her. I wanted to tell her everything would be okay. But I knew deep in my gut that it wouldn't. Not like she wanted it to be. Things had already gone too far. Not just with Dawn. With all of it. Dawn had spent so long trying to control the narrative, trying to make it all seem less awful than it really was. She'd manipulated, hidden, orchestrated things to save face. But at some point it stopped being about what happened. It became about who we really were underneath it all. And that was the hardest truth of all. I didn't know who my wife was anymore. That realization hit harder than anything else. "I'm sorry," she told me earlier, voice trembling. "I'm the one who betrayed you. I'm the one who made a mess of everything. I thought if I could just fix it quietly, it wouldn't be so bad. But some things, they just can't be fixed. No matter how much we wish they could be." Eventually the dust settled. We went through with the divorce. It was surprisingly civil. No fireworks. No drawn-out fights. We split our assets straight down the middle, retirement accounts, investments, everything. She kept her car, I kept the house. Our joint accounts were divided evenly, and we agreed on what needed to be handled from there. In case anyone's keeping score, we did it by the book. No drama. At least not on paper. But emotionally? We were in pieces.